Good evening, one and all. Welcome to Fab Open Up session. So, let me take a minute to thank you all for being here for this hopefully wonderful session that's going to happen. Let me give you a context. So, the primary motive of this Open Up session is to give you an idea about what is Fab Lab actually is, and what is the concept of Fab Lab, and how you can work together with Fab Lab, etc. If you are aware of Fab Lab, or if you are new to the ecosystem, no matter you are in the right place. Okay, so we used to conduct a Fab Open House physically, but due to the global pandemic, we are taking it offline, virtual, and you are here in the first session of uh, our Fab Open House session. This will be a very casual one. So if you have any questions, you can keep it in the chat, and we will take it for the later. And if like and at the end, we will have a conversation like together, or like based on any queries you have regarding Fab or allied. Okay, so let's start with the quote: "Give ordinary people the right tools, and they will design and build the most extraordinary things," by Neil Gershenfeld. So yeah. Let's start with the question: what is Fab Lab? So Fab Lab itself abbreviates to Fabrication Laboratory, right? Which is a global distributed network of personal fabrication laboratory, or digital fabrication laboratory, we can say. Fab Lab is a concept by the scientist Neil Gershenfeld, as his quote suggests. So his idea is to give the right tools to the right people. So that's the concept of Fab Lab, and it's a it is the one of the component that enhances the personal fabrication in the globe. As you may know, Fab Lab consists of set of machines, where all if you go all across the globe, you can see the same bunch of machines. It's all about the community and people. And if you go to a place, you don't feel you feel like home, right? If you have same set of machines, and the code and the digital fabrication tools will be the language for you. And the usually a Fab Lab process a 3D printer, laser cutter, CNC rotors, electronics workbench, PCB milling machines, vinyl cutters, and etc. Some of you may aware of. So we will get into the each of the machines later on in this presentation. Yeah. So as I said, the concept of Fab Lab is to take you know it may not be your a core what we can say, a product for a commercial purpose or something like that. It can be anything. It can be your extra 20 hours project to take it up to Fab Lab and make it happen and make it to a real product. So the as I said, the we will repeatedly use the term personal fabrication. So which anyone with the minimal knowledge or training can come into the Fab Lab and make their idea to a prototype. So as you may know, like there are 1,750 Fab Labs around the globe right now, and and each year it is exponentially growing. Coming to our facility, Fab Lab Kerala. So Fab Lab Kerala is an initiative by Kerala Startup Mission, so which is a government nodal agency by Kerala government to support startups. So coming to the network, so we possess like bunch of categories of Fab Labs we have. So we do have mini Fab Lab, and Super Fab Lab. So before getting into it, let me take you through the journey, how we started Fab Lab. So in 2015, in Kerala, in a city called Trivandrum and Kochi, we have started two Fab Labs, two standard Fab Labs. And with that, by the seeing the impact of that Fab Lab to the makers, innovators, and startups, so a government has planned to extend the facility to 22 mini Fab Labs, which is right now in engineering colleges and polytechnics. Okay. And so it acts as like a distribution hub for all the Fab Lab, and it is also geographically distributed as well. So it enhance the and also open up the virtue of like a distributed manufacturing and things like that. So coming to the Super Fab Lab, so which is like an a different game. It is for the Super Fab Lab. We do our facility in Kochi is the only one in the globe outside MIT we have. So it has, so all this classification is based on the machine capabilities or the capacity, digital fabrication capability we have. So Super Fab Lab is capable enough to manufacture in small batches, or we can say we can make machines that is needed for mini Fab Labs or Fab Labs from the Super Fab Lab. So that is the concept of it. So this is our lean and mean team we have. This is Super Fab Lab Kerala team. And yeah, so we all are present here. So if you have any queries regarding Fab Lab or any digital fabrication aspects regarding to your project and all, you can shoot it here. Okay. So I'm calling Rahul to take it from here for to talk about digital fabrication history and why digital fabrication.
Okay. Hello, am I audible?
You are loud and clear, Rahul.
Okay. Thank you, Nadeem, for the wonderful introduction. Let me give you just a brief context on how digital fabrication came to be. So I might switch between English and Malayalam. I hope everybody is okay with it. So if not, just raise your hand. I can stick to one language. Okay. So as a brief history, let's start with digital fabrication. So before fabrication, there was manufacturing. So the word manufacturing is actually comes from the Latin word manus factum, which means to make by hand. Okay, so that's how things were done back in the 17th century. There were tradespeople who used to make things by hand. These were skilled craftsmen, and these changed when in the 18th century when the Industrial Revolution happened in Britain. So more of these work began to move into factories. So the great economist Adam Smith said that he proposed the idea of division of labor or reorganization of work. So basically what you're doing is that you're taking a large job and you're splitting it into one individual parts. So this one task can be mastered by one individual, or if it's simple enough, can be replaced by a machine. So that's when Industrial Revolution really began to take steam, as in there began a larger involvement by machines. So taking from that, when we go towards the 1800s, no, I'm sorry. So taking from that, sorry, please, previous slide, please. Yes, okay. So if you look at the second slide, it's in 1808, Joseph Jacquard invented the power loom. Okay, so what he did was he made an attachment that could read instructions and program the power loom. Okay, so these power looms were operated by skilled craftsmen back in the day. So you can see see the weavings in the patterns. There is one person sitting at the control and he's telling if the patterns are going up or down. So what he did was he turned that skill into code, and that code is written in this punch card system. So what this allows us to do is that it allows us to transfer the skill into just code, which can then be fed to a machine. So it replaces the skilled artisan into just an operator, basically. So this is an important step in computing history because this is the first time a machine can be programmed. Okay, this is entirely mechanical, no electricity involved actually. And in 1837, Charles Babbage took the concept further by saying that if he can program a machine, he can also store information in it, and he can retrieve that information and do some work on it. Nadeem, next slide, please. Okay, so from the Charles Babbage, which he proposed the analytical engine, after sometime in the 1800s, 1896 actually, Herman Hollerith realized that this holes punched on these punch cards could be represented abstract information which could be stored electrically. So this is the first time electrical design electronics got involved in the running of machines. So he went on to make the Hollerith tabulating machine, which later went on to become the IBM. So now the machines can be programmed and they can interact with humans. Why not let the machines do the work for us? So that's why in 1949, in the servo mechanisms laboratory in MIT, you can see the first milling machines, which was invented by John Parsons. So during World War II, the aircraft components were getting increasingly complicated that even the most skilled person cannot accurately make these curves. So what they did was they tied a computer to a CNC milling machine. So basically the computer would read out information from a card and send pulses to the machine, and the machine will move in steps according to the pulse. Okay, so this was the first computerized milling machine there. So, and the first of these CAM softwares, as we know them right now, are called as ATPs, automatically programmed tools. Now, we've come a long way since then. Next slide, please. Okay, so we jumped quite a lot in this picture, actually, from the automatically programmed tools, in which the last problem which occurred was, now that computers can take in information and it can move machines, how do we tell the machine what to do and where to go? So that is where the entire CAM or computer-aided manufacturing process workflow comes from. And in the 20th century, we have crossed that threshold into digital fabrication. Okay, so in digital fabrication, basically the entire workflow of designing and fabricating has gone into the digital realm. Basically, you're drawing on the computer, and the computer is processing that into machine code, and another computer runs the machine. So the entire workflow is in the digital realm. Then next slide, please. So there are, in our present century, there are multitudes of tools which are controlled by machines. So look at any CNC machine and think of it like this. It is a machine which can move in certain axes, like X, Y, and Z, or the 3 rotational axes, and there is a computer to control it. And what we put as the end effector or as the tool defines what the machine is doing. So it could be a 3D printer, it could be a laser cutter, it could be a milling machine. So all these machines can be broken down into motion systems and things to control those motion systems. Okay, so if we have like the normal tools which we have right now, these are commercially available tools we have is a CNC milling machine, which has a rotating tool which can cut through wood or any material. Then we have laser cutting, which is focusing a very tiny beam of light into the material to cut it out. So these are the two subtractive processes. And the one which has came very recently is the additive manufacturing, which is in the realm of 3D printing, which you're not taking away parts, you're actually adding to it. So this allows us a whole new realm of possibilities, like we can create impossible structures, which were not possible by milling or any other methods. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are like the most common machines and most common manufacturing processes in the rapid prototyping, which we have previous slide, which we have right now. And we're going to go over the machines later, but let me give you just a brief of what these can do. Like 3D printing comes under the realm of additive manufacturing. Laser cutting is cutting by a focused beam of light. Now, robotic machining can be additive as well as subtractive. There are people who are building rocket fuselage cones by 3D printing using a robotic arm, and there are building construction companies here using robotic arms. So basically, the robotic arm is just a motion system. Depending on the type of tool you attach to it, you can do different kinds of job. A CNC machine, everybody knows the one. And then the last one is water jet machining. So water jet machining actually started as a rough cutting process in the 1980s. But since the software technology has come a long way, we can actually predict the path of the water. So it's very accurate right now. So it was not accurate until very, very recently. So we can use very, very fine tolerances close to the CNC milling tolerances with the water jet right now. Then atomic force microscopy, it comes in the realm of electron beam collisions, but I don't think it's practical for us. Then Nadeem, next slide. So how are we going to tie all of this together? So so all of these machines are chosen in such a way that people with very minimal training can operate them. So you only need access to a computer and some design skills, and there are softwares which can convert the design into machine code. So every year from January till July, we run a course called the Principles of Digital Fabrication. Principles and Applications of Digital Fabrication. So this is globally known as the Fab Academy. So there are more than about 200 labs, 250 labs participating every year, and it happens from January till July actually. So in this course, you're going to learn. We'll get into the details later, but roughly you're going to learn 3D printing. You're going to learn CNC machining, laser cutting, and also what you can take out of this course is that you'll be able to see any kind of electronic equipments or any kind of physical product, and you'll be able to deconstruct all the steps. Like this is made by this manufacturing, this is made by this. So if you have an idea you'd like to express and you want to do that through technology, then this is a course for you. Okay, so with that, I'd like to hand over to Georgina and Joel for explaining the machines.
Yeah, regarding the machines in Fab Lab, we have two types of machines in the basic or the normal Fab Lab and also the other super Fab Lab. So in the normal Fab Lab, we have machines that could make the product proof of concepts. So and in super Fab Labs, we have machines that could help you in making prototypes that are production ready. So regarding, so moving on to the machines in yeah, okay, just a minute. So regarding the machines in the normal Fab Lab, we have a laser cutter and its name is Protex PD 100. It has got a 60-watt CO2 laser, and the materials that we could cut in this laser cutter is acrylic, wood, and fabrics. And this manufacturing process is named as the subtractive type of manufacturing. So in this type of manufacturing, we have a stock material like this acrylic, wood, fabric, etc. And we have our design. So using the design, we can subtract the material to get our final product. So this kind of output products can be obtained from these materials. So laser cutter is a subtractive type of manufacturing machine. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is a PCB. Actually, this is a desktop type milling machine. Okay, in this milling machine, we can use it for multiple purposes like making molds, then the PCBs that you are seeing in this picture. So in this picture, you are seeing a single layer copper FR1 PCB where we have used the machine to mill the traces and obtain the final PCB board. So we can use this machine to have a prototype of a PCB for your product. So along with that, we can have we could mill wax for making molds in this machine. And the name of the machine is Modella MDX20. So next slide, please. So in the basic Fab Lab, we have a Sense 3D scanner, which could be used to scan a real world object and convert it into a computer-based file, or that what we call an STL file, and can be used for other kind of production, etc. So we can. The advantage is that we don't need to design the real world product. We can just scan it and just input it into our system for upgrades or etc. So next slide, please. And along with that, we have an electronics bench, and this electronics bench consists of all the testing and testing equipments, which help you in making PCBs, and also another supplies. A soldering station is also available in our workbench. Yeah, okay. Next slide, please. So okay, this one is a vinyl cutter. So actually, when we try to the use that we have with a vinyl cutter is that we can cut vinyl sheets to make stickers, etc. So it's basically a sticker cutter. So next one, please. Okay, actually, this is the large machine. This is the largest machine that we have in our basic Fab Lab. So this is a shop board And this is a CNC router, and it has got a bed size of 8 feet by 4 feet, and it could be used to make furnitures that you can see in the picture, and all kind of stuff like that. We have made molds for aeroplanes and molds for like boats, etc., along with this machine. So these are the basic machines that we have in our mini Fab Lab. Of course, there is a 3D printer, but that's just a basic 3D printer. This is a FDM type 3D printer, and it has got around 20 cm by 20 cm bed size, and can print just prototype what we call the casings, etc. So this is a fuse deposit machining type 3D printer, and the material that we use is PLA. Yeah, along with that, we have a facility which we have a inventory which could use. As I have said earlier, that we have showboat for making the what we call the molds, and we can use that mold to cast in our molding and casting facility. We have all kind of resins, epoxies, extra for making a mold or an output product. Yeah, okay, I will forward to Jordan for explaining the Super Fab Lab machine.
So as John said, as initially we set up a couple of Fab Labs in Accruze, Kerala, and eventually we figure out that the Fab Labs what we have today are capable of for developing successful prototypes, or less like a prototype, is more like a proof of concept. So in order to get it to a final production stage or present to a manufacturer as a actual replica of the product, we need more of a prototype, more accurate prototyping machine. So then we discussed it with MIT, and we come up with a new set of machines which are more capable than the ordinary Fab Lab in fabricating on metal and also in plastics for actual product development. So Michael, could you please move to the next slide? So this is actually called the Zund, which is a Swiss machine, which is very capable in cutting. It's a subtractive manufacturing machine, which means it's subtract material from the stock material. So one of the major advantages of Zund is that it can have multiple modules. You can insert multiple modules in the same machine. One module could be a routing module, which can route on wood on plastic. And one module will be a creasing module, which can crease cardboard and make right angle or angle benders in cardboards. And one module will be a cutting module, which can cut cardboard fabric as well as fiberglass or carbon fiber. And the bed is continuously feeding so that we can input rolls of materials more like vinyls and fabric. So this is a super fast machine. The machine can accelerate up to 2 meters per second, which is super fast. And these machines, the application of these machines are usually for cutting plastics, for enclosure or functional parts, or cutting fabric for any purpose, cutting fiberglass, and most important use is for making packages out of cardboards and carton boxes, which can also could be used for creating cardboard furniture. Rahul was working on some awesome ideas of cardboard furnitures, but unfortunately we couldn't able to show it because we are not in the lab. Okay, could you please move on to the next slide? So this is called a water jet. So as Rahul mentioned, this is a subtractive manufacturing process. The nozzle is mounted on a gimbal, and a high pressure water supply is exited through the nozzle, and a certain amount of abrasive component is added to the high pressure water. And along with the water and the abrasive, the water jet can cut through any material irrespective of its physical property. The only since it's an abrasive process, it is not dependent on what kind of material it is. It can cut on glass, granite, stone, metal, steel, plastic, and almost any kind of material could be cutted with this water jet. So one of the advantage of our water jet is that, so usually you have noticed that whenever water exits from a nozzle, there is a tendency of water to disperse into a larger area. So one of disadvantage is that when I'm cutting a material from the top, at the top, it will be dimensionally accurate, but whenever the water goes inside the material, it disperses and there is a tapering will occur. So this machine, the nozzle is mounted on a gimbal so that the software will automatically compensate for that tapering, and a perfectly right angle cut could be obtained at the material. So this can be also used for sharp cornering and also for rapid movements. And this is water jet. So could you move to the next slide? So this is a Throtec 400 flex laser cutter. So this is a dual laser machine, which means it can cut in CO2 as well as in fiber. So the fiber laser could be used for engraving on metal, and also you can make small PCBs by engraving with a fiber laser. And also you can use the CO2 laser, which is of 50 to 120 watts, which can be used for cutting any normal material, which is fabric, acrylic, fiberglass, or any sort of conventional laser cuttable machines. Few exceptions are you cannot cut PVC or such components which generate toxic gases when it is heated. So just make sure your material is safe for laser cutting just before using this machine. Okay, next slide. So this is actually a 2-axis CNC lathe. So in FabLab, we have this small lathe for creating small parts, small shafts and flanges for connecting. And this is a computer controlled CNC machine so that you can add complex geometries inside the lathe pattern. So in conventional lathing, you need to manually move the 2 axes by your hand. But this is a CNC axis. You can directly input your CAD profile to the machine and will automatically cut that patterns. Okay, go to the next. So this is actually a wire EDM machine. I hope you might have heard about a wire EDM. So this is actually an electrode discharge machining tool. So there will be a high voltage conductor, and that conductor will be act as the cutting tool. And whenever the conductor approaches the stock material, it creates an electric arc and it creates plasma. The plasma will etch the material out of the stock material, and it creates a cutting profile on the stock material. So one of the disadvantage of a wire EDM comparing to the water jet is that you need to pre-drill the hole in order to get the wire inside the stock material. Other than this is a pretty good machine because in water jet you have the problem of tapering, but since in wire EDM you are using a uniform wire, the accuracy you are getting will be independent of the height. So if you are cutting a 1 mm sheet, or you are cutting a few centimeter height of sheet, the accuracy will be same. So because you are using a wire, and the wire will be etching from the stock material. So yes, move to the next slide. So this is actually an email. This is actually a CNC also. You can directly feed DXF or G-code directly to it, but it is not like a HAS or Jyoti machine, which has automatic tool change and multi-axis milling. But this machine can also accept G-code and some CAD file formats also. So the more useful purpose of this is to prepare the stock material or doing some manual milling on a stock material. Suppose you have already machined part and you want to drill some holes in a non-position. So you can set the material on the work area, and you can set the origin, and you can set the coordinates in the DRO, and you can perform the operation at that position. So it's for more like a workaround.
Hello, Georgian. We missed you in between. Rahul, can you take it from here?
Okay, so yeah, as Susan said, so this is actually an email with an integrated DRO on it, so that we can do both manual as well as CNC operations on it, like basic CNC work. That it is not as powerful as the HAAS, but it gives you more manual room to work on it. That is basically you're working on it by hand, but you have assistance of a computer. Okay, then maybe next. Okay, so this is the two machines. On the left is the Mechatronica, and on the right is the Lynx Evo. So Mechatronica is basically a pick and place machine. It's a very small desktop-based pick and place machine. It can accept about 20 or 30 odd parts, and it has optical recognition system so that you can just put your parts in a bin, and it will automatically find the correct part and place it on the board. So this is very good for small batch productions. Like if you want to make 50 or 100 boards, you can use this machine. And it's very compact. So it stays in one, it's like a desktop version of a pick and place machine. Then on the right is the Lynx Evo. So the Lynx Evo is a very special machine in which it is actually a 3D stereoscopic microscope. So basically, when you're looking through it, you can get a 3D image of it, of the circuit board or whichever part you're looking at. So it allows us to kind of like almost like an AR feel into it. You can get into all the small parts, but you can see it in 3D. So that brings a whole new dimension to looking at smaller parts. So it's very good for evaluating like smaller works or any errors in PCB boards which you're making. Yeah, maybe next please. Yeah, so that I think Jojen is back. So let me do just one more slide. So the print farm is basically we have a couple of USA Mark IIIs and as well as Sindos. So the print farm is per day we have 10 of these printers, 5 Prusas and 5 Sindos. So uh, theoretically we have the capability to print about 24 hours of work in 240 hours of work in one day. So that's the printing capacity of the entire print farm. And apart from these regular FDM-based printers, we also have resin-based printers. That is on the bottom left, which you can see the Formlabs. So the Formlabs is a resin-based 3D printer, and the main advantage is that the resolution is very high. So you can print very small parts, and you have, depending upon the material, it can either be flexible or it can be hard. So the main difference between the FDM and the resin is the resin has higher resolution, and you can print more complex geometry, like very thin geometries, which are only possible by resins. So I like Jojen take over. Jojen.
Okay, thank you for the support. So this is actually a more professional 3D scanner. So what we have seen on the Mini Fab Lab, which is a sense, which is almost a sub-centimeter level of accuracy. What we have in Super Fab Lab is called an Artec Artec Leo, which has sub-millimeter accuracy. So you can use it for reverse engineering, and you can, okay, so you can 3D scan and you can import into the Artec Studio and you can reverse engineer it. There are a couple of tools already pre-built in the software, so you can, there is a provision for exporting it to a step file also. So this is a handheld and you don't need a computer always plugging into. So you can use it for 3D scanning buildings, architectures, and also automobile. So you can take it as a single module and you can scan, and this data could be stored into the SD card or directly to the cloud. And you can post-process it later when you have the setup for servers. And that's it. Next. So this is actually a handheld rotor called Shaper. This is actually a CNC also. So suppose you want to do some milling on a already made part. Suppose you want to drill a hole inside your dining table for some other purpose, I don't know. So suppose you want to do something like that. So there is no way you can take the dining table to the CNC machine. So this is a cool machine because it's actually using optical recognition to localize it itself on the table. So if you look closely, you can see that some tapes are sticked on the table. So these are called the markers. So if you put few markers on the table and you put the machine on the table, so the machine can localize itself by using that markers. And there is a router inside the machine, and the router is mounted onto into a gantry. So the gantry has a freedom of almost moving 5 centimeters. So if the machine works in such a way that the machine will instruct you to move in which direction you should move the machine. And depending on the design, the machine will give the instructions, and you have to roughly move the machine around that path, and the machine will automatically correct that trajectory using the servo mechanism inside it. So it's more like a gimbal you use for your mobile or your quadcopter. So you have to roughly move the machine in that position, and the gimbal will automatically make the steady movements. So you can cut a clear cut with the shaking hands. It's okay. The machine will compensate for your handshakes. So that's it. Next, I hope we covered this one. So we have a woodworking area also. We have a couple of woodworking tools. We have table saws, band saws, and grinders and scroll saws. So we have a couple of woodworking tools which are usually for post-processing the CNC cutted parts, or for suppose you want to some modification, or you accidentally happen to have some ROM cuts in the CNC, you can correct it with the woodworking tools. Or also if you want to get straight cuts, you can directly use the table saw for that. So we have a couple of woodworking tools, and which is very cool if you ask me. So next. So initially we ran the Superfab Lab for almost 1.5 years, and we figured out that there are this is all based on an assumption. So we requested the starters what are things will be helpful for you if you have a manufacturing facility, and these are some results we occur in the initial survey. So based on that, we purchased our initial machines. And when we run those machines, the requirements of the startups and the community are they are also developing. So they need more capabilities. So eventually when we discussed with the MIT and the startup mission team, we figured out that we should go for a second phase, and there should be some machines also. So these are the machines we are buying in coming year. So let me walk through this. Next slide. So this is actually a Stratasys J55 3D printer. The 3D printers what we already have is called FDM and resin based. So this is also a resin based printer, but it's a slightly different in operations. So this is actually a polyjet machine. So instead of selectively laser curing the polymers, it's actually jetting polymers in the exact position, more like an inkjet printer. So the printer head will move, and it will specifically jet the polymers based on the voxel. A voxel means a volume pixel which corresponding to a particular part of the STL file. So depending on the specific physical and appearance wise properties of the that particular voxel, the machine can inject different materials. It will be something like, if you want a particular part need to be in a different color, you can specify that this part I needed in a specific color. So it can multicolor printing. Also, you can add textures. If you want the texture of a leather or more like a stone or a brick, you can incorporate the texture inside the design itself, and the printer can automatically print on that particular. So one of the cool things is that you can directly print a aesthetically same looking product in this machine. There are no post processes are needed. So you can directly print and take the product from the machine. So this is a pretty cool machine. So you can make a perfectly final prototype with these kind of machines. So you can also add flexible material so that the hinge areas or the flexible areas these can all be printed in a single print. So go to the next slide. So this is actually a robotic cam. When we run the Fab Lab, we figured out that some of the repeated works could be automated, or we can give more value to the tools if we have a certain degree of flexibility in automating things. For example, if you are using this one for cutting the packages, so if you have a, you can automate the process if you have a robotic cam. So similarly, you can automate 3D prints. So one of the advantages of having a robotic cam is that you can use it for automating things, and also we are planning on conducting some workshops on this so that the students and the interested individuals can get hand on these tools and elaborate their understanding about robotics, and they can add their own custom algorithms to run the robots. So this is a this is a pretty cool tool, I consider it as. Next slide. So this is actually a Formlabs Fusion 3D printer, which is actually a powder-based 3D printer. It's a selective laser sintering machine, which means the powder could be selectively laser sintered, which means more like melting, but not exactly it's melting. So it's actually sintering the powder into a into a foam, and we since it's printing in powder, you don't exactly need the supports, but there should be some support in some certain scenarios, but usually you don't need supports for these kind of printers, and it can print in nylon, and it is engineeringly, considering the engineering properties, nylon is pretty good for developing products. And you can volumetrically print so that you can nest it inside the entire volume. If you're using an FTM, you only have to put your components on the bed. But if you're using a powder-based printer, you can nest it all over the volume. And this is one of the printer we are looking for the next phase. And next slide. Next slide. Okay. So this is actually the FabLite laser cutter. It's a metal laser cutter. This is a 4-axis laser cutter, which means it has 3 quadrature axes and 1 rotational axis. The rotational axis could be used for cutting pipes and cutting patterns in tubes or pipes. And you can also cut stainless steel up to 6 mm. And above that, you can cut using water jet. One of the advantages is that it is comparatively cheaper than the water jet. So you can use it for making sheet metal parts, and you also for functional parts, linkages, joints, and small gears, etc. Next. So one of the key feature we eventually come across is that fabrication is more capable if we have a sheet metal and a dedicated welding area. So a lot of the users in Fab Lab were suggesting, why can't you come up with a welding and sheet metal workspace, which will be very difficult because you don't have that much freedom when you go to a shop and ask a guy at the shop to do whatever you want to do. So there will be some limitation. They might be busy at that right time, so they don't have the opportunity to properly support you. So what we are thinking to establish in Fab Lab is that we have a facility to try out your ideas with the freedom of your time. And the welding and sheet metal workspace will be a great area for that. You can do sheet metal bending, cutting, and punching and welding, all sort of activities. So these are one of the few priority things we are considering this year. So good. So thank you. I'm handing to Nadine for the remaining. So Nadine, would you please carry on?
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much thank you team for sharing all the information. For the now, we will open up for questions from your end. So you can either raise hand and you can talk yourself, and otherwise you can keep your questions in the Q&A tab. So we will wait for questions from now. So Rahul, can you read out the questions that we have right now?
Yeah, we just have a question asking for a contact, but I think, yeah, I think we can share that. But apart from Nadeem, can you generally share how to get in touch with the lab, like where these two labs are, how to get in touch, and what is the basic workflow for doing a simple application process?
Sure thing. Sure thing. Thank you for bringing it, Rahul. So, as you know, you have a mail ID in the screen right now. So, if you have any queries, you can drop a mail. So, if you have a requirement, what is the this is the current workflow we have. So, I can actually take you through the workflow. So, if you have a query, basically we are operating in three modes. You can either use our machine resources, and also you can make use of our machine resource plus in-house designers, and also we can take it up as a whole project. The project comes relevant when it is a R&D project of or you have a customized project in need. Yeah. So if for example, if you want to 3D print from a facility, what you want to do is like you have to mail to your requirement to this mail ID, and we will keep you in touch, and we will revert with the like estimate and all the needed details that you want to proceed with the order. So once the order is confirmed, we will raise an invoice against the order, and once the payment is done, we will do the work, and we will let you intimate you by the mail when the work is done. And either we are shipping it, since it's a like pandemic and all are going on, we are shipping back to you, so you don't have to be in a place where it is physically present, maybe in Kochi or Trivandrum, but we can ship it to you anywhere, like in India or Kerala per se. Yeah. So that's regarding the workflow. So we are waiting for questions from your end. Rahul, please keep an eye on the questions tab. So if any questions, you can read up.
Yeah, Nadeem, you can stop the screen sharing. I think a couple of people are raising their hands and they want to chat.
Sure. So I have allowed Jai Shankar to talk. Jaikar Joseph. Yeah. Jaikar.
Yeah, that is, we are doing a research work, but the thing is, on and off, we used to do a small prototyping. We cannot make it as a project for the total product now, because it's a bigger unit. That is, it is in that prototype developing stage of that's the detector unit that will be proceed with that's the that treatment unit. So that in that thing, how can I make a project for each? Because small materials I have to make it. That is some triangle with some holes, something just like that. So then it will be assembled with another thing just like that. So in that thing, that's how that tariff, so you will budget the thing and all that. That's the estimation. That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay. So if I'm not sure I'm taking your questions correct. So if I'm not, if I'm wrong, correct me. So you just wanted to know, like basically, like how to do works, right? Like how to do complete your project. Am I right? Or
Yeah,
how
it
to
will
start
be
with
step
it?
by step. That will be that. See what the materials I need is a step by step. That is
Okay, I think this is like a vague question, and we have a more to talk about it. So for the time being, I can give you a glimpse, like regarding the material usage. If I get your questions right, okay. So in order to do a project, like it depends, like it has a many process, right? As you said, clearly said, pointed out, now we are on a prototyping stage, right? So it has a stage prior to that, which is ideation, right? And in ideation, we used to make all the bombs and what to do and where to do and things like that, and all the classification has to be done, right? And all the mapping has to be done. So you will in the ideation stage, you will get to know like what are the materials that you really need, and where you are going to do, and all those stuff, and the availability. And there are certain things to be also taken care of when it gets to manufacturing. The prototyping, fabrication, and the manufacturing, it's a both really different game. So in prototyping, all the materials and suggestions, we can help with you on that. I think you have noted our email, and you can keep in touch with us, and we can assist you on that. Yeah, thank you. So I'm since we have a time constraint, I'm allowing Arshad Koya to come on and talk. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, sir. I would like to know, you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were loud and clear.
Yeah, I would like to know that you said that there is an estimation is there. So if I want to be make a box of a plastic box of to 1 mm thickness of 50 by 40 by 30. So what strategy we will estimate for that for a prototype making of that type of boxes?
Yeah, thank you. So, Justin, do you want to take it up, or I may?
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of fabrication you want to use. If it is 3D printing, it is by the time as well as the material usage, which we've just compressed it to machine time. So if you have complex geometry on the part, then it takes a long time. If you have thicker walls, it takes a long time. So thin, long structures are easy for making with 3D printers. And right now we're charging about 100 rupees per hour. That is including the material for 3D printers.
Yeah.
Okay.
As Rahul clearly said, it purely depends on what you really want to do with it, like the parameters that goes with the like a print, right? So what thickness, what infill you want to give, and things like that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Ashok.
Yeah.
Mithun, you are good to go.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you are loud and clear.
An image of mold making machine, something like silicon mold. I think I just wanted to know more about it.
Mithun, your voice is not clear now. So can you repeat? I missed you in between.
Yeah. Am I clear now?
Yeah, you're clear. Please
Yes.
go ahead.
I saw an image of a mold making machine, sort of like a silicon mold sort of a thing. So I wanted to know more about it. Like what all material possibilities are there for this machine? Like suppose I want to make something out of PP, polypropylene. Is it possible for me to make a prototype of a specific material that I want?
Sure thing, Mithun. I got you. Rahul, do you want to take up?
The thing with polypropylene is that you need to either injection mold it or you need to melt and pour it. So that is, I don't think you can buy polypropylene resin. So the thing with silicon molds is that you can make the mold, but how are you going to put parts into it? So there are a couple of ways you can do it. Like if it is polypropylene granules, and if the mold is heat resistant, and you can put it inside an oven, it should work. But mostly polypropylene is made by injection casts. So these are not silicon molds. And the ones in the lab which we are making, they are silicon molds, and they require some kind of resin which you pour into the resin, into the mold to make it. Did you get my answer? Yeah, okay, he got it.
Okay. So do we have any questions? Yeah. So Jabesh has asked about like a nylon printer, right? So as Rahul rightly pointed out, currently we have FDM printer, and we are dealing with like materials like PLA, TPU, ABS, and we also have SLA one. And also like powder based one is on like in near future we will be opening up for the GP. Okay. Hope you got answer. So do we have any questions? I'm allowing Vishwa. Yeah, Vishwa.
Make a village so that they can print on nylon.
Exactly. So if you have any queries with nylon as well, you can connect us and we will keep you to the right person, connected you to the right person. Okay. So Vishwa, you are good to go. I think Vishwa dropped. Okay, so we have Jack again. So Jack, you're good to go.
Yeah, we have discussed, no, that's it. I will contact through that email and then she will discuss one and all. That's so that is
Sure
I
thing,
need,
Jack.
yeah.
Yeah, your concern can be taken up. So kindly mail us to the provided mail ID fabhelp@stratamission.in, and we will do the needful. Thank you. Nitin Anand, I can see your raised hand. You are good to go if you have a query. Okay.
Yeah, I think that is done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So do we have any questions? You can drop, you can just raise your hand and come up.
yeah. Naveen, I think we can go to the handoff.
Rahul, do I miss you? Can you come up?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I think if there are no further questions, I think we can go to the handoff.
Sure, sure. So we have one more from Ashit Koya. Is it? No, it's the previous one. Okay. So I think we are good to go. It's the start. It's like if you have any further queries, you can contact us. For sure. I think Ashit Koya is raising. So let's take his question. Ashit.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I just want to know that if we have the we made some prototype by using some other material. If we come up with that, can we make to an attractable model from FabLab, something like that?
In the sense, can you get in bit deeper onto it, that what sort of materials you're looking forward to? So like what machines you are looking forward to? Is it for a 3D printer or a CNC machine or
Sir, actually, we are building some products, innovative products, and we are making that one by using
Okay.
acrylic sheets for enclosure making with acrylic sheets, and the batteries are keeping inside that box, and we are just making a prototype of that one. And
Got it.
yeah, it is entirely different from the that we are seeing in the as an international level. It's very different from that. So if we once we completed our research and purpose, and if we come with that product to you, can we sit and make it as an the product which it will be attractive to the international level as like.
So you're seeing like in terms of like aesthetics, right? Or like how it should look on a market, right?
Exactly, sir.
Yeah. So for the time being, we are only focusing on the prototyping part. So on the product development part, to be precise. So on the manufacturing part, we are not expert on that, but still we do that. But it may be like better for you to pitch in with an expert who is into like aesthetic part of that. We are more into product development aspect of the designing part. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
I think we are good to wrap. Yep. So thank you one and all who have joined, who have taken the time to join for this open house session. And I thank my team for providing this wonderful information to the participants. And for sure, we will meet soon with all the to meet your queries and to update information regarding the lab and all. Okay. So thank you very much for the time being, for being in the webinar and for sharing your queries and knowledge to us. So thank you very much. We are wrapping off. See you soon. Admin, kindly not, you can end the session.